G'day so-and-sos, welcome to my sewing room. If we haven't met before, my name is Kathy and I am stoked to have you here today because we are making the world's easiest bag. This thing is just so much fun to make and it is just super easy. So if you haven't made a bag before, this would be a great one to start with. Or if you've had a little bit of experience, then this should come together for you really easily. Now, this is 2 circles and 2 rectangles, and that is it. And we have this gorgeous shape and pattern, and it's also got 2 pockets on the inside, which is really cool considering there's only 4 pieces to it plus our interfacing. Now, I have used rivets on mine, but I'm going to explain to you how to just stitch your strap on if you don't want to use rivets. I just did it because they were there and I thought it would look good. Now, I am that confident that this bag is so easy that you can make it even if you've never touched a sewing machine before, that I am going to, in my next video, not this one, in my next video, I'm going to teach a complete non-sewer how to do this bag, and I'm not going to touch anything at all, except that I'll thread the sewing machine for them, but that's it. Everything else will be up to them. That is how confident I am that you can make this bag if you've never made a bag before. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, then make sure you subscribe so that you can watch that one in a few days or next week whenever I get it up. I've just got to convince them to do it, which should be half the job. But otherwise, I'm ready to get going. I'm excited to do this with you today, and I'm going to show you step by step. So trust me, okay? Let's get cracking. Let's have a look at my supplies and my fabric. So I've got a couple of acrylic rulers, my not so good scissors for the interfacing, and my good scissors for the fabric, rotary cutter, snippers, a little bit of chalk, little purple thing as always, pins and clips. Now let's have a look at my fabric. So for one side of my bag, I have this really beautiful cotton duck, which I've used before. You might recognize it from another bag. And then this orange cotton broadcloth, which is just a similar sort of weight to the duck. So they're just cotton woven. So if all you've got is just normal cotton woven, that's fine. And then I've got some light interfacing, which I'm going to use for my straps. And then I have my fusible fleece that I'm going to use for the main component of the bag. I also have my iron and my ironing mat, which currently has a cat on it, so we won't worry about that. Let's have a look at how we're going to cut out our fabric. Pumpkin. Meow. Let's have a look at this fabric, how much I've cut out, and then how we cut out the circles. So all of my pieces are going to be the same size, and I want to cut out a 20-inch diameter circle. And I also need 2 inches for my straps. So I have cut all these out at least 23 centimeters, 23 inches on each side to make sure that I have enough room. And I've cut that piece, and my 2 pieces of fusible fleece, all the same. And my light interfacing, I've just got some scrap, but it's at least 18 inches long and at least 4 inches wide. So I can cut my straps out of that. So let's have a look at just one of these pieces. So what I'm going to do is fold my interfacing in half with the glue side on the inside, because that might be a little bit difficult to draw on. Lining up those edges and smoothing it out. And then I'll fold it in half that way. So I've got a little square with folded edges on this side, and then my 4 open corners on that side. So what I want to do is work from my folded edges bottom corner. What I'm going to do is grab my little ruler And I'm going to place my 10-inch mark on that corner. So I've got 10 inches up this side. I'm going to start with it lined up along the edge like that and give myself a chalk mark. And then I'm just going to spin it a little bit, and I'm just keeping that 10 right on the point of that corner. And then around a little bit more, another little dash there. And just keep moving around about 1/2 inch or so every time. And just giving myself a little chalk mark. Pretty easy. Now, unless you've got like a massive plate or something in your house that's around 20 inches, this is going to be the easiest way, I think, for you to do it. There we go. And then I'm just going to give myself a nice curve mark to work with. Like that. Then, because this is interfacing, I don't want to use my good fabric scissors, so I'm going to grab my not so good scissors and cut that out. Now, I don't want to use my good fabric scissors because cutting through those layers of glue, even though the glue's dry, just might blunt them a little bit. There we go, get rid of that. And then I have a nice circle in the size that I want. Now, if you wanted to make yours a little bit smaller, then the whole process from now on in is going to be exactly the same. So if you don't have quite enough fabric, or you just want to make your bag a little bit smaller, instead of 10 inches, go 9, 9.5, 8, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to do my other 3 pieces exactly the same as that. So there we go, I'm all interfaced. I love that iron, though I think it's on its last legs. Okay, I'm just going to trim down the excess interfacing that's on there using my not so good scissors. So if you have access to one of those old Elna press, I think that one is, then they're really worthwhile using for big projects like this, because it took me like 10 minutes or so, I think, to interface all that, where if I'd done it by hand, it would have taken forever. And I really think I get a more even application, I guess is the right word. Where if I'd ironed it on, I think I have sort of more risk of my fabric moving around and getting wrinkles in it. So have a look in your mum's garage and see if she's got one stashed away somewhere. Otherwise, they do pop up on Marketplace a fair bit. Don't pay a fortune. I've got 4 or 5 of them. I've got a few spare, but that one's definitely my favourite. I tend to hoard things. And I usually pay like between 180 to 120 bucks, I guess. So don't go paying a fortune. People think they've got something that's old and it's worth a lot of money. I'm old. I don't think I'm worth that much. If you were to break me down and sell me for parts, you'd probably get enough to put fuel in your car and that's about it. Okay, so let's just get rid of this. But yeah, definitely a much quicker way, especially if you're doing like a big pattern with a lot of pieces. Then yeah, they're very handy. So get rid of that. That looks good enough, I reckon. I think our circles turned out pretty good. Okay, now what we're going to do is grab our clips. I'm going to get those straps out of the way for now. So our circles, what we're going to do is fold them in half. Just try and get it as even as you can. And they're not going to line up perfectly because your circle might be just a tad skew-iff, little bit on each edge, maybe here or there. You might get a little bit of overlap and that's fine. Don't worry about it. It'll get caught up in the seam allowance. So in half, and then I'm going to fold it in half again and just crease it, just so I can find my center. Unfold it again so it's just in half. And now my crease I just made, I can see is there. What I'm going to do is measure 3 inches either side of that little crease mark. So 1, 2, 3, just as it lays there. So if you've got a mat, that would be ideal, or just place it over the top of a ruler. Don't worry about, trying to do that. Just 1, 2, 3, that line, 1, 2, 3, and there. So what I have now is a line that's about 6 inches, and that's going to be my turnout hole. Now, don't let me forget my turnout hole. I'm notorious for forgetting and sewing over it. So whack some clips on there, and when we take it over to the machine, Not sure what way it's going to be up because I can't see that in my head. So I'm actually going to copy those marks on the other side as well. Because between here and the sewing machine, I will forget. So I'm just going to whack them on the other side as well. There's my center. There's that one. And there's that one. Cool. That's that one prepped. Same thing with our other piece. Fold it in half. Give myself a good crease. Fold it in half again. And give myself a chalk mark up at this open end. Do it on both sides while I'm here. Cool. Open it up. Place that chalk mark on one of my lines and then count 1, 2, 3 in one direction. 1, 2, 3 in the other direction. Give myself those marks on that end as well. And whack some clips on there. Like that. And then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we are going to start at one of our bottom corners, sew up to that first chalk mark, backstitch, and either skip over and start at this chalk mark and go down here, or start at the bottom and up to that chalk mark, just so long as you are leaving that 6-inch gap open on both of them. So let's go do that. Okay, it doesn't matter which one you start with, just start with either piece, and I'm going to start down in that bottom corner, and my seam allowance is decent. It's around 3/8 of an inch, and my stitch length is around 3.5. And I'm just going to follow this curve around. Now, if you're a bit worried about being able to sew around a curve and get that to move with you or how you want it to, I do have a short up with a bit of a tip on how to do it. And all I've done is just sticky taped a cap lid to my sewing machine bed there, and it just helps you sort of follow along. So have a look at that if you like. And then I'm just going to move it around and start at that other chalk mark. If it's easier for you to start back down at the other end, the bottom, then you can do that, but I think it'll be easier to do it this way. And then I'm going to do the other piece exactly the same. Okay, there they are. Now, just make sure that you've caught your fabric on both sides all the way around, because you might have had a little bit of that unevenness as we went. Okay, now I'm just going to trim down these edges a little bit, not too much because we want to be able to snip into them. So I'm going to trim them down to around 1/4 of an inch. So both sides of the fabric are fairly even, because I did go a bit wonky there where one side of my fabric was longer than the other, because our circles are just not going to be perfect. Unless you've got a dinner plate that big, but I don't. So, and then we're going to just snip into our seams. I might need my sharper scissors. Don't want to use these on the interfacing, but there. We're just going to snip in about 1 centimetre or 1/4 inch apart as close to those stitches as we dare, but be careful not to hit your stitches. Now, if you do hit your stitches, don't panic, just take it back over to the sewing machine and just reinforce that a little bit and you'll be fine.
I was built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on the gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna end.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quench the thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic with this logic, you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
Built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grieving. Put your foot on the gas, no, never stop competing, yeah. I've been doing this on my
Okay, there we go. So they are all snipped down. So just remember not to trim down whatever project you're doing. Don't trim down your turnout hole and don't snip it, because you always want to have enough fabric to then fold over and sew on. Okay, stick my fingers in there, grab a corner and turn this thing out. Just like that. It's always fun. I always love doing this. I don't know why. It's just satisfying, I guess. And I'm going to make sure that I poke out all of my seams really well. Poke out those corners and run my fingers down along those seams, pushing them out, but also making sure, like doubly sure, because we've already checked it, but check again, that it's caught on both sides. So again, if you've missed, turn it back out the other way and just fix it. There's always a fix. And it's good to always fix things, especially when we're making something like this, like a bag. Like, we're not using a whole lot of fabric or hardware or anything like that. Although I might use rivets instead of sewing my handles on, but I'll still show you how to sew the handles on if I do. You know, it's not an expensive project or anything like that, but you know, we're spending a bit of time on it, so you want it to be as good as you can make it. So if you notice something is a little bit wrong, not wrong, a little bit not as good as what you want it, or what you think that you can do, then go back and have another crack. Righto, let's grab the iron. Cool, and give this thing a bit of an iron and iron that turnout hole into the position we want it. So I'm going to stick my little fingers in there, and that will encourage them to sort of fold down onto themselves where they naturally want to sit, and iron that shut and whack some clips on there. So I'm going to do that to both of these. Iron all these seams nice and flat, and if I need to open up that hole and stick my finger and run my fingers down again, that's fine. Otherwise, just sort of roll that seam in your fingers like that. Cool. Now, we're not going to top stitch yet. What we're going to do is grab our ruler. Grab that one. So, with this lining piece, I've got it that way, so the straight edge is up and down towards me. Fold it in half, line those edges up, and just give it a little press. So I want a little crease at this bottom corner is all I need. Like that. So I can just see it. Then I'm going to do the same thing to my main one. So this one is going to be what I'm calling my lining one, and this one is what I'm going to call my exterior one, even though they're both on the inside and both on the outside. But I want the majority of this one on the outside. So give that a little crease as well. Cool. Now I'm going to measure in 2 inches from my straight edge, like that. So I'm placing my ruler over my work, 2 inches. Then I'm going to grab my other one. So you can see I've got the round edge of my lining here and the round edge of my exterior facing the other way. And I'm going to lay them over the top of each other, and I'm going to have a look for those center creases and line them up. Actually, I want that center crease there a bit better because I want it on that side. So there, you can give yourself a little chalk mark if you need to, instead of just a crease. And I'm going to line up that curve right at that 2-inch mark, like that. And I'll show you a better view in a moment if you need. And then I'm going to whack some clips. Not some clips, what are these sharp things called? Pins. I'm going to whack some pins around that curve through both pieces. Like that. So it's got some thickness to it, but it's not dense. So you will be able to do this on a domestic machine, I promise. I've tried it on a domestic and it was fine. Because I didn't use medium interfacing, I used fusible fleece. Fusible fleece is softer and easier to get through. Okay, so that is what it will look like. So I've measured in 2 inches from this straight edge, which is there, and then I've made a crease at the center of this piece, a crease at the center of my sunflower piece, and I've lined up those creases. So there's 2 inches here. Okay, so check, have a look if you're not sure, check and see if they sort of line up at the top, see if they'll line up at the bottom. It's another thing one of these big mats is so good for. Now what I'm going to do is take it over to the sewing machine and I am going to top stitch. I'm going to start at one of my exterior pieces at the corner and I'm going to top stitch, and when I get to here I'm going to be going through both pieces. I'll come up here and then I can close that turnout hole on this one and continue all the way up. We're not going to worry about the turnout hole on this piece yet. We'll talk about that in a moment. So for now, decide which piece is your exterior, lay it on top, and we'll go and do that bit. Now let's just talk about our thread for a moment. So what I've done is I actually now have 2 different color threads in my machine. I have a blue thread loaded into the top of my machine, and I have an orange thread loaded into my bobbin, which means when I'm sewing from this side, I'll have the blue on the top, and on the bottom, I'll have my orange thread, so it'll blend in and won't look really glaringly obvious. Now, I've used the same thread. They are both Gutermann top stitching thread. So keep that in mind when you do this. I'm going to have a little bit of orange on this side as I start from here, but I can live with that because I think it'll look all right. So when you do this, if you do use 2 different types of thread, so I'm going to lengthen my stitch length to around 4.5, and I'm at 1/8 of an inch. So the side of my foot is lined up with the side of that fabric. And this is a zipper foot or a 1/8 foot. If you're using a wider foot, just to make sure you're measuring out your 1/8 of an inch. So back to what I was saying. If you do that and you mix up your thread, just make sure that they are both the same weight. Don't try and use a really light thread and a really heavy thread, or 2 different brands or anything, because your machine might jam up. So over this bumpy bit, I'm going to use a hump jump. So if you haven't seen one before, that's a hump jump. If you don't have one, you can just fold up a little bit of fabric into a square and just place it under the back of your foot, just to lift up the back of your presser foot to get over that bump. So now I'm coming over my turnout hole, so I'm making sure I maintain that 1/8 of an inch as I go over that, because I want to make sure that's closed up neatly, because this will be the front of my bag. Over that bit. Now I'm not pushing or pulling at my fabric, I'm letting my machine take my work. I'm just pivoting it. I'm just using this hand to sort of push it sideways, but not push it or pull it under my feed dogs underneath my foot. And all the way around, and remembering a little back stitch. Cool. Okay, so there is what it should look like at this point, and then we've still got the clips in our turnout hole on the orange side. Now I'm going to take these pins out and get them out of the way. And now we're going to talk about this back bit. So what we want to do with this back bit, we're not going to sew all the way around like we did there. What we're going to do is just sew over the turnout hole bit. So I'm going to now whack some pins in this way. So around that curve. So I've got my lining side up. So my orange side, remember, is my lining side. So I've got the majority of that side facing me now. And I'm going to whack some pins in there. Oh, finger. Should have known that was coming. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take it back over, and I'm going to sew from this corner up to here. So I'm top stitching that bit. Then I'm going to stop once I get to this corner. Then I'm going to start again where my clips are, so along my turnout hole, and stop. And then start again at this bottom corner and work my way around the rest of that curve. Now what I could do too is give myself a little chalk mark, find where that, I can see it pretty well, but I'll do a little chalk mark anyway, where that turnout hole stops and starts. And just give myself a few little marks there so I don't forget. So we're going to be leaving that bit open and that bit open. And I'm going to, because I'm going to be stitching from this side now I'm going to change out my thread so that I have orange thread in the top and blue in the bottom. So I'll get my machine ready and then we'll do that bit. Righto, I've changed over my thread, so now I have orange in the top and blue in the bottom. And I'm going to start at one of these corners, and again I'm going to be at 1/8 of an inch, and my stitch length is 4.5. Now if you need to, when you start off, have your hump jump under there. I think I'll be right. Or start in a little bit further. So start in a little bit like that. So if you're on a domestic machine and it's being a little bit fussy on you and you can't figure out why when you stop and start, it might be that you just need to come in a little bit on your fabric. And then just work my way up to this first curve. And I'm going to stop here and backstitch a little bit. Cool. Cut my thread. And then, like I said, we're going to start up where that turnout hole is. And I'll start just, maybe a 1/4 inch or so further down, like up this way, than what I think I need to, just so I know that I'm grabbing it. And work my way around there. Just going nice and slow around that turnout hole so it's as neat as I can get it. And remembering to stop at the other end of that turnout hole. So about there, and backstitch a little bit. Take it up, cut my thread, and then start again down at this bottom corner, right on those stitches. Oh, I've got that perfectly. Little back stitch, and just all the way around, and back stitch there at the end. Cool, that's that bit done, and our piece is joined together. Now I think we'll have a look at the handles. Okay, let's have a look at these straps. Now, a little reminder to myself to put on the screen that they're 4 inches wide as well. Okay, I'm going to grab one of them and I'm going to place it right sides down on the table in front of me. Grab my long ruler and some chalk. And I'm going to measure up 2 inches from the bottom edge and give myself a chalk mark. So that chalk mark would be smack in the middle. Then I'm going to grab my ironing mat and my iron, and I'm going to fold up this bottom edge to meet that chalk line and iron that down. Now, I had in my head that I was going to do double-sided straps. That's why I cut them 2 inches, but when I iron them, I realised it's not what I want to do because we are not using hardware, so I'm going to do a method to hide our raw edges. Okay, so that's half is folded down. I'm going to turn it around and do this other end. Now, if I was doing hardware on this bag and using strap ends, I would have done a double-sided strap, but we're not going to do that. So we're going to do it this way. Trust me, I'll get there. Okay, so that's both ends folded into the middle. Now I'm going to fold it in half again and iron it down. Whew, hot. Like that. So it's like that. And all those raw edges are in the middle. But now I'm actually going to turn it the other way. So that way. I just wanted to give myself that crease by ironing it that way first. So it's like that. So all my raw edges are here and it's folded in at the back like that. I'm just going to iron it just on the ends, just on that end a little bit, and whack some clips, and then a little bit on this end as well. I don't want to iron it all the way across. I don't want a big crease all the way across. And that end, and whack a clip on there. So see how all my raw edges are on that side? And then like that. Okay? So, same thing with this one. Going to place it right side down, so pretty side down on my mat. Measure up 2 inches from the bottom edge. Chalk mark. fold up the bottom and iron it down. Now, if you need to watch it a few times to see how I ironed that and clipped it, then go ahead and you just want to make sure you get it right. It's probably going to look wrong. I'm going to turn that around and fold up the bottom edge. It's going to look weird because you're going to look at it and go, why on earth have we got it like that? Just trust me. What we're going to do is sew down just the very ends, and then we're going to flip it out when we come back, and that's going to hide our raw edges on either end of our strap. So it is nice and pretty when we attach it. Iron that down, and if you still don't get it, just trust me. I know what I'm doing most of the time. Okay, so I've got it like that. So I've got those ends fold in. Then fold it in half again, so all my raw edges are on the inside. Iron that to give myself a nice crease along the edge. So it's like that, and my raw edges are on the inside. Now flip it around the other way. So now all my raw edges are on the outside. And iron that down just at the ends and whack a clip on there. And then this end. And whack a clip on there. Whew, hot. Cool. So we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we are just going to sew down across each end at about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so just have another look and just make sure yours looks like mine. So like that. Now I've changed out, so my top and bottom thread is both orange. And I'm just going to go at about 1/4 inch, and my seam allowance should be around 3.5. And I'm just going to go across and then back stitch all the way across. And that's all we're going to do at this stage. So I'm going to leave my top and bottom orange for when we top stitch these straps as well, because I think the orange will be a really nice contrast against the blue anyway, because the blue's got so many different colours running through it, it'll look pretty. Where I think if I did the blue across the orange, it might be a little bit too much. But if you want to change up for each strap, then you can do that too. Cool, that's it. Let's go back over to the table and turn these out. Okay, so there they are. Now what I'm going to do is grab my scissors and just snip away the very corners of these guys. Like that. Just be careful not to hit your stitches, and if you do, take it back over and just do it again and it'll be fine. Cool. Mess everywhere. Now, all I'm going to do is just push that edge out. Poke it around like that. And then all my raw edges are folded in. So it's there where we sewed it, pop my thumb on it and push it inside out like that. And then let it all fold up how it wants to, and then all those raw edges are back on the inside and our ends look really nice. And then just give it a hit with the iron to hold it in place. So if that looks a little bit confusing, if you're watching it and not actually making it along with me, then it'll be fine. Like once you make it along with me and it's in your hands, you'll get exactly what I mean. I'm just going to poke those ends out a little bit in there. So my corners are sitting nice and flat. Then I'm just going to whack some clips. It'll want to sit there nicely anyway, but I'm just going to whack some clips on there anyway. So when we take it over to the sewing machine, it's nice and even. Looks good. So same with this one. Get rid of those threads. Poke that raw edge up inside the strap. Same on that end. And let it fold in half like that. So this is a really good trick to do when you're making straps or handles for your bags and you don't have any hardware, or you just don't want to use hardware because hardware can get expensive. So if you're just making a few practice ones first or whatever, then this is a really good trick because they look so neat. I mean, you can sort of fold them up and iron them up and clip them in place, but then you always run the risk of one little edge falling out or it being uneven. This is just a really good way to get that consistency and have no raw edges poking out anywhere. They are all hidden. So now what we're going to do is take it back to the sewing machine, and we are going to start at one end, stitch down our open edge, flip it around, go across the short, back up the long, and back around the other side. And do that to both of them. Okay, my stitch length is going to be about 4.5 because we're top stitching. I'm going to start at the open end, and I want to be around a 1/8 of an inch, so I'm nice and close to the edge of that fabric. And I'm going to back stitch a little bit and just do my best to stay nice and close and consistent to that edge. Now you've heard me say not back stitch, you've heard me say back stitch a lot. You've heard me say top stitch a few times. And if you're following along, you can sort of see what I'm doing. But if you're wondering what top stitching actually is, it just means we are stitching on top of the fabric. So we're not sewing a seam that's going to be on the inside, like when we just did our ends there. We are sewing on top. So that's all it means. Up to the end, I'm leaving my needle in my work. Lift, pivot, along to this end, lift, pivot, and down this side. And if this is the first time you've watched one of my videos and you're wondering how on earth I'm lifting my presser foot without touching it, I have a knee lift on this machine, which is super handy. Love it. Okay, down to this end. Same thing, going to leave my needle in my work so I can pivot easily without my fabric running away. And then I'll do my other one exactly the same. Okay, now we're going to look at putting these straps on. So I've got my work orientated lengthways in front of me, so running top to bottom. And I'm going to grab my ruler and I'm going to find myself a 2-inch square. So hopefully you can see that and see what I mean. So it's going to be 1, 2 across and 2 down. So my point that I want to use is here because it's 2 down and 2 across. Now I want to place that point up in the top corner of my bag and line up the long straight edge with that line on my ruler. So I'm 2 inches down and 2 inches across, if that makes sense. because I won't be able to get 2 inches across here lining up with the edge because it's curved. So then I'm going to grab one of my straps, find which is my right side, and you should be able to tell by your stitches which is your right side and wrong side, because your stitches will look a little bit nicer on the top. But if you can't see it, then don't worry, it must just look good on both sides, so don't worry about it. Line up my strap along that straight edge and make sure it's lined up along the bottom, and whack some clips on there, like that. Then making sure that my strap doesn't have any twists in it, it's laying even. Same thing on this side. 2 inches by 2 inches. So that 2 inch square here. So 2 inches down and 2 inches across. And place my strap on there, lining up that side and lining up along the bottom. And then whack some clips on there, like that. Now I've decided I'm actually going to use rivets. So if you know how to use rivets and you want to use rivets, then great. Otherwise, if you're going to sew, what you'll do, grab your ruler again and measure up from the very bottom of your strap, 1/2 inch, and give yourself a chalk line over there. And then measure up another 1/2 inch and give yourself another chalk line. Then you'll sew along that first chalk line, up the side along those existing stitches, across your second chalk line, and back down along those existing stitches. And you'll do that on all 4. But I'm actually going to use rivets, so I'll show you on one. So I'm going to grab my big boy and I'm going to measure up 1 inch from the bottom of that edge and give myself a little chalk mark right in the middle. So 1 inch from that bottom edge. That one looks a little wonky. 1 inch from the bottom edge, give myself a chalk mark right in the middle. Then use my hole punch, give myself a hole, and that one, punch a hole, find my rivets. Now if you haven't got a cam press, then they are just fantastic. They're really good, they're really easy to use, and they just elevate your game a little bit. So I'm going to take my rivet with the long post, push it through and put a little cap on the back, and then same on this side. Now I talk about these a lot in my videos, and I say it in every video, so if you've heard me say it before, ignore me. But they're pretty cheap also. They used to be quite expensive, but now they're fairly cheap. Hence why I bought 2, and then I don't need to swap out my dies. So now my rivet is on there. I'll put it into my die press one. Pop that down. And then this one. And pop that down. Now I don't think I've done a video yet just on these, but I will. So if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, then do so if you want to see a video on those. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing on this end with my other strap. Now what we're going to do is have it still right sides up so I can see my rivets and my exterior fabric. Turn it long ways and fold it in half like that. And just line up all those edges as best you can. And then whack some clips down along the side, lining up these edges as best you can. Like that. All the way down. And then the other side. Line up those edges as best you can. It's fine if you have to sort of pull one side further than the other or whatever. Just get those sides lined up evenly. So we've got some bulk there again, but like I said before, it's not dense, it's not hard. So if you do struggle at all with your machine, think about changing out to a heavier needle. Have a look at your needle. You might have a really lightweight needle in there. You might need a heavier weight needle, like a jeans needle. Or you just might need to change your needle in general if it's been a while. Cool, so we're going to take this over and we are going to sew this down both sides at about 3/8 of an inch. Okay, I didn't record because I'm an idiot. So I'm just going to do it again and just go over it again, which is fine. So I've shortened my stitch length to around 3.5 and I'm starting a little bit further up. I'm not right on the bottom. Needle down and around 3/8 of an inch and just sew up that side. Just make sure that you're catching both sides of your fabric up to the top, back stitch, cut my thread, flip him over, and again start at the bottom, back stitch a little bit, and up to the top. And the reason I'm starting at the bottom is that it helps the fabric sort of stretch out and lay flat as it sort of moves up if it shifts a little bit. If I started at the top and sewed down to the bottom and it bunched up, I'd end up with a bunch at the bottom. Cool. Okay, so there's our sides sewn down. Now what we're going to do is pull our bag open sideways, like that. And then squish in the bottom a little bit and fold it up. So there's the bottom of my bag. Does that make sense? So I've folded it in half so I can see my side seam and just folded up that corner so the bottom of my bag is showing. Then I'm going to spin that towards me so it's a little bit easier. And I'm going to measure up from this bottom corner 1 inch and give myself a chalk line and whack some clips on there. Just whack a couple of clips there, flip it around, and this is the other bottom corner. And then it's not going to be exact because it's a bit hard to lay it flat and everything else, but measure up 1 inch, chalk line, and clips. I'm just going to show you again. Okay, so there's my bag, pulled it in half, so there's my side seam. Okay, there's one corner, I've just flipped it over and then measured up from that point 1/4 inch, and then on this side there's my side seam, my bag sitting in half. You can see my rivets there, that's where you'll have your stitches if you stitched, and just fold that bottom point over and give myself a 1 inch line. You could do it on this side if you wanted to, but we're going to sew from the bottom edge. Okay, so we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we are just going to sew along those chalk marks. Okay, remember to hit record this time, Catherine Ann. Righto, my stitches are at 3.5 still, and I've got my bag so the bottom of my bag is up, so that big side seam is underneath. Lift my presser foot, and I'm not going to start right on the edge because that would be a bit hard, but if you need to, use your hump jump and a couple of stitches, back stitch, up over that seam, and then back stitch. Oh, it doesn't want to back stitch very much, so I'm just going to pull it forward a bit again, needle down, and there we go. Now the other side. So like I said, there's some bulk there. It's thick, but it's not dense. So if you can't actually fit it underneath your presser foot, then you'll be able to lift your presser foot again. So when you lift your presser foot like that, so that's lifted up now, on pretty much every machine I've ever come across, you can then lift it again. Now on yours, it'll be with your little switch at the back or underneath here. So you lift it once and then you'll have the option to lift it again. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. Okay, let's take it back over to the table and have a look. Right, now we're going to turn it out. So I'm going to grab one of those corners and just flip it inside, well, not inside out, the right way out really, isn't it? Like that. Oh, it's so cute. Love this fabric. Love it. I did another bag. Where is it? Behind me there. Another bag in this fabric, and it's just so pretty. And if I didn't say, I can't remember if I said or not, it's from Spotlight. If you have a Spotlight where you are, both of them are. The orange just goes so well with it too. Poke that one out. Poke that out. A few loose threads. And we'll give it a bit of a hit with the iron. So I'm going to, would have told you in the intro as well, but I'm actually going to teach a complete non-sewer. This is my goal anyway. This is what I plan on doing. Going to grab a non-sewer, someone that's never sewn anything before, and I'm going to teach them how to make this bag from scratch, and I'm not touching anything. I'm see how I go because I'm a control freak. I am going to try my very, very best not to touch anything except like the sewing machine to thread it up, or you know, if there's any issues with that, the only thing I'll touch is the sewing machine if I absolutely need to. That's how easy I think this bag is, and that's how confident I am that absolutely anyone can make this bag. Now, if you haven't realised already, those bits on the lining that we didn't sew are now pockets. So let's have a look. So there's a pocket. You won't be able to see. There's a pocket, and on the other side as well, there's a pocket. So that is a really, really cool way of adding a couple of little pockets in there. Oh, look at that. That is just so cute. And oh, I thought I had a twist in my strap, but I don't. My rivet just moved around. There we go. How cute is that? I'm going to give that another bit of a hit with the iron and get that looking exactly how I want to in a moment. But that is just gorgeous and so easy, like 2 circles and then the 2 rectangles for the straps. We didn't have to construct any pockets. the pockets just made themselves on their own, which is just so cool. And I'm stoked. I'm going to make more of them. And what I'm actually thinking is that would also be a really cute Easter basket. So when it comes up to Easter, remind me, because I'll forget by then, I might make another one as an Easter basket, but put some big ears or something on it as well, and maybe a little like cottontail on the back. That'll be so cute. But I will forget. So if you're watching this close to Easter, leave me a comment and ask me if I'm still doing that so I remember. Okay, peeps, thanks heaps for coming along today. If you watched for funsies, then thanks heaps for watching. I really appreciate the support. And if you made it along with me, I hope you had fun, because I had a ball making that. And remember, it's only fabric. We can always buy more, and I will see you next time. I'm going to go walk my dog because he's driving me nuts. Okay, see ya. Bugger.